Hi there and good morning. I'm Julie Cook coming to you from my kitchen in Mesa, Arizona. And every year at Christmas time, we make what's called Lefse. That's L as in Larry, E, F as in Frank, S-E. It is a Scandinavian type of flatbread, if you will. And we make it in the wintertime because it has to be cold when you're rolling it out. So we'll get into that later. Tomorrow we're going to be making this tomorrow morning. So it starts with potatoes, and it starts with russet potatoes. Now I like to buy mine at Costco because they seem to be really dense and nice and firm. And Costco tends to have a really great product. But if you want to buy them, wherever you buy your groceries, get russet potatoes. I start out with 15 pounds of potatoes. Seems like a lot, but let me tell you, when you have grandchildren in your life who love Lefse as much as my grandchildren do, it's really important for us to make sure that we have plenty of Lefse for them. So I'm going to run the water now, and I'm going to dump the potatoes in, and I'm going to, so I can clean them up. In the meantime, I am going to show you the end result of the Lefse. So you're seeing where we start with the potatoes, and now you're going to see the end result. And it sort of looks like a tortilla. It's all rolled up flat. And traditionally, at least in the house that I lived in, you could only put butter on it. Some people like to put sugar. Some people even put meatballs. But my family just simply puts butter on them, and then you roll them up and you eat them like a tube. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this back. And now I'm going to show you what I do, and I simply peel the potatoes. I simply peel the potatoes like this. And then when I'm done peeling them, then I'll come back to you. We've got to chop them up small, and there's a reason for that, and I can explain that to you as we get into this video, into this making of the Lefse. So, you know I've got them. I'm peeling them, and I'm going to chop them small. Get back to you when we're ready for the chopping part. Talk to you later. Hi there. So now I have peeled all the potatoes. You can see in here all the peels. Those are going to go into my compost bin. And I have peeled the potatoes. I have cut all of them except this one, and I put them in my big steamer pot, ready to go into the, sit on top of the other pot. So this is what I do. I cut it like this. Cut it any way you want, however you want to cut your potato. I find this works well for me. So I cut the potato up like this, make it into small cubes like this, because it's going to go through a ricer, and I'll show you what that is after a while. But this potato is just about done, and then it's headed for the steamer pot, and after it is done steaming, we will meet again, and I will show you how I go about ricing the potatoes. So here you go, last potato in the pot, and this is what this looks like. Hi there. So I've steamed the potatoes, obviously, and now I'm pushing them through this ricer. Now, keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to use an industrial ricer like this. Where this came from is the leftovers of the fact that we used to make lefse and sell it years ago. It was really fun, and it was a lot of work. So anyway, we kept this because this is what we do every year at this time of year, is we make lefse. Now last year, I made I took this ricer and I filled it with these potatoes, and I made a smaller batch, and I went to my grandchildren's school and I showed them how to make lefse. So you can certainly do that. And now this is, now I'm pushing these potatoes through. Steaming them is the way I've been taught to make lefse. And I think the biggest reason for steaming is you have less of a chance to get them really wet, because having really wet potatoes causes the mixture that I'm going to mix tomorrow, it makes it sticky. Now I'm talking about tomorrow, and you're saying, well, tomorrow, why don't you do it right now? Well, these potatoes have to be really cold because I'm mixing them with flour and salt and sugar and oil. And that's what is the basis for, that is what makes the ingredients that make up lefse. So this has to be cold. So I'm finishing this, and I'm going to be dividing this into 2 bowls. You see another bowl over here. And then I'm going to cover this and put it in the refrigerator overnight. And right now it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so tomorrow morning about 8, I'll start working on making the lefse. So I'll see you then. Good morning. Remember yesterday, I left you with the potatoes that were being riced. That's what a bowl of potatoes looks like once it's been riced. Now, I had 15, it started out with 15 pounds. I divide the potatoes into 2 bowls, and I put the other one back in the refrigerator after I had weighed both of them, because they need to have equal amount of potatoes in order for this to work. So my recipe calls for salt, it calls for sugar, oil, and flour, and put in that order. So for 8 pounds, a little over 8.5 pounds of potatoes, no, it wasn't 8.5, it was like 7.5 pounds of potatoes, I take 1.5 tablespoons of salt and I spread it around in the bowl. Obviously I pre-measured this, and I spread it around in the bowl because I want it to be even for when I start doing this. The next thing I use is sugar. The next thing I get is sugar. So I need a 1/2 cup of pure cane sugar. So I do the same thing. I take and spread the sugar around. Spread the sugar around in the flour. And then the next thing I use is between 1/3 and 2/3 of a cup of oil. And then after that I use 3 cups of flour. There. I'll put in just a little bit more oil. So I use 3 cups of flour. So, setting this all aside, I've got my flour. I like to use unbleached flour, and I spread this out in the bowl. 2. Seems like a lot of flour, but honestly, when you start putting this together, it really is not. I need to remind you that if you have a problem digesting gluten, this is not for you. I have an issue with digesting gluten, and so I end up not eating this, and I make this for my grandchildren, my husband, and different friends. So you see how I got this all mixed up like this, breaking it all up so that the flour and the sugar and the oil get distributed evenly, and it's broken up like this. I break it, and now it's time to squeeze it together, and this is what I end up doing. This is how I do this. So I squeeze it all together and I push on this so that it allows the gluten to get mixed. And while I'm doing this, I will say goodbye for right now and we'll come back and I'll show you how I make the lefse. Hi. So I've just taken a little bit of this mixture. This is what it looks like when it's been all mixed up and I don't know, squeezed together to get the gluten to go. And this is about the right size that I use. Now I just take and roll it up in a ball. So I then take some flour, some of my flour, and this is just unbleached flour. You can get it at any of the stores that you shop at. I've gotten it at Sprouts, I got it at Walmart. I don't use much flour, so I end up buying flour. I end up buying flour just specifically for this. So I take and flatten it out like this, and I roll it over like that, and then I have my Lefse rolling pin. This is the one that's got the little nubs in it. And why do we use this one? I don't know. I guess it's like the old saying that somebody's done anything for years and years, and it's just because they've always done it that way. So it's sort of like the shirt that I have on. I've always worn this. This is obviously the only time I wear this. I have pinned it back together. I've been wearing this for years and years. And this is my Lefse shirt. My family jokes about it, my husband does. That you're gonna wear your Lefse shirt. He calls me Lefse Lena sometimes. Anyway, if you're Norwegian and Swedish and you live in northern Minnesota, you know who Lena and Oli are. So remember, you notice how I roll this out 3 times. You want to make it really, really thin. And so you have to go back and forth to make sure that it's even. So it's nice and flat. I take my Lefse stick and I put it on top of my plate that I'm cooking on, my flat plate that I'm cooking on, and add some more flour and just spread it. This is a great tool. This is a tool that if you live in Minnesota or winter places that have snow, maybe even northern Arizona, you use that to brush off the windshield in the morning or during the day whenever it snows so you can drive your car. And I thought this is a very good tool to have to brush on a little bit of flour. And I never even talked about the pastry, this pastry board that I'm using, and it's a cover, and I keep it in the freezer all year so that it doesn't get funny and stale. And now I've 3 times, and if you'll notice over here, I've got my grill. It's nice and hot, and I'm going to take this and turn it over on that one and let that cook. And then I've just got to do this, continue. I like mine nice and thin. So I roll them and roll them and roll them and roll them again until I feel like I've gotten them thin enough to meet my standards. Some people like them thicker. You know, honestly, Lefse is just sort of a fun thing. And my understanding is that it's a little difficult to come by. So here we go again. And I am going to put it on here. And I'm looking at my...
Not getting this.
I'm looking at my thing. So now I am going to put this under the cover.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to roll another one. We've got one on the griddle right now. Just going to roll another one. See how I do this? I find that this works really well. to start my rolling. Whoops, time to turn it over. I'm going to keep rolling until I feel like this is the right amount of rolling before I turn to the third one, the third rolling. So much of lefse, I find, is something that you get used to, something that it's like a feel, if you will. Okay, now I'm going to roll it over here. See, you have to cook it on both sides. That's why I use 2 griddles instead of 1. I mean, you can use 1 griddle, not a problem. But it goes faster if you have 2 griddles, and it goes faster if you have a partner. So my husband is going to be helping me today until my daughter and grandchildren come over to eat the lefse that we're making today. All right, this is getting there. Now you can see, now I'm going to show you this, what this side looks like, see? And then I'm going to take and put it under here because we want to keep the moisture in. Now you can see that I'm working in my garage. Well, why am I working in my garage? Because this is kind of a messy business. So I take and get everything organized in the morning. I sterilize the tables, and then I can work out here knowing everything is nice and clean. So the tools you need griddles, you need a flipper or 2. My husband uses this one. You need a lefse rolling pin and a board, and it looks like this, and I put a cover on top so I can roll it. I have a couple of bowls so I can put all my stuff in it, and this is how I make lefse. And I hope you enjoy this video, and who knows, maybe we'll see each other down the road again. So happy lefse making from your friend in Mesa, Arizona. My husband calls me Lefse Lena. Have a great day and enjoy.